There are dinosaur models targeted at the serious adult collector, and there are dinosaur toys targeted at very young children. There is, however, a middle ground, dinosaurs that are not outrightly cute. Now, these faithfully include key recognizable features of a dinosaur while amplifying certain aspects or proportions. They have a distinct charm because of such an overlap, and today we're going to look at one such figure. Long-time viewers will know I'm especially happy to feature new or less mainstream or well-known artists because there are so many that deserve better recognition and are still fired up by their passion for something rare in our current state of emphasis in technology and electronics. Superreal, a young company out of Malaysia, recently sent me this couple of very lovable raptors. Now this is Rookie the Velociraptor, and he comes in two flavors. You have a feathered version and an unfeathered one. As you look at the models more closely, you'll see that as cute as these are, you won't find imaginary features, anatomical impossibilities, and outlandish speculations outside of realistic plausibility. You will, however, see defining features of the dinosaur that any serious enthusiast will recognize, and doubtless you real theropod experts out there will probably see more than I can. So let's have a closer look. First, let's look at the featherless model. Starting at the head, you'll see immediately that this is full of tiny intricate detail. The eyes are for me the focal point here, and I'm immediately pleased by how these pupils are painted. Nice and round, and with a lifelike shine over it. You can see from here, perfectly directed with no cross eyes. Then around the orbit, you'll see the skin textures. Then down the longirostrine snout, noting the very nice fade. And there are lips on this one. In the mandible, notice this raised band of scales. You can even see the faintest texturing, like whorls in the face. And then this ridge here. It's really nice that in spite of the cuteness, the head is an area where the proportions are still respected. And moving down the neck, you see a unique character in this model. Here, and in front of the chest, this should already look familiar to you if you cook. Yep, it looks like what you'll see on chicken skin. Now Adam from Superreal has told me that the intention was to represent proto-feather or filament follicles, but if you don't subscribe to that, you can just think of these as the kind of apical nipples seen in a Triceratops lane specimen. So you see that hairless or not, this model still suggests a link to modernity of thought in terms of feathers. Incidentally, this should answer that age-old philosophical question: did dinosaurs taste like chicken? No, chicken tasted like dinosaur. In addition to this wink at feathers, here on the ulnar side of the arm, what do you see? Well, if you're firmly on the camp of no feathers at all, or you just wanted something to express some nostalgia, these can well be a type of feature scale. However, I see this as the beginnings of a feathery plumage, which through evolution will end up in the ultimate place we already know. Another area is here near the cloacal region. You can take these to be skin folds or the hints of filaments. It is nice to have this flexibility for interpretation here. But back up here and let's enjoy the arms. Now just look at their mani-raptoran hand, with that characteristic resting posture, courtesy of the semi-lunate, and proportions of those fingers. So, in spite of various liberties taken elsewhere, certain essential proportions are still respected, delighting any fan of anatomy. Also on the box, you'll see it says, for adult collectors. And here you see why. These claws, which in a toy would have been blunted, thus popping the anatomical balloon. And we look at them from the front. You see them hooking immediately like this. Man, this really looks good. And if we're on the topic of claws, we of course have to head down to the feet. Now by the way, I need not mention just how nice the colours are, very well blended. So down the back, the thighs, again with those feature bumps, on the way to the claws. And here I really have to say is where the beauty and the care of the sculpt really shines. First of all, look at how these scales reduce to the tiniest possible size, going down the lateral side of the ankle, and all the way to the toe. On the underside, you see the nice bulges in the soft tissue. At first it looks untextured, but in fact, look closely and you'll actually see whorls, a little like fingerprints, and that's such a nice, clever and creative touch. And speaking of wearing away, look at these two blunted claws. Very thoughtful and logical that these tips won't remain pristinely sharp. But what is sharp is going up here. Again, look at that tiny scale detail. And here we see the killer claw of Velociraptor in all its slashing glory. The curve, the sharpness, the color of it, very nicely faded. And again, that skin detail. Of course, not forgetting the dorsum of the other toes. And just to look at that reduced first digit. Man, just imagine all this detail if Superreal were to choose to do an actual full-on proportionate dinosaur. Then finally down the tail, noting again that color fade. Alright, so let's get to the fully feathered one. And here you see some differences right away. The first is of course the full feathers, if I could use that word. The plumage is coloured as befits a bird. And at first glance I actually see more of a bird than I do a dinosaur. And that's actually an aesthetic that many believe should be the case for some dinosaurs, certainly in the Coelosaurian lineage. You'll see many depictions these days that acknowledge this. The second thing is how much volume this gives the animal. Now starting again at the head, this review almost tells itself visually. It really is a very avian flavour that I look for in these dinosaurs. You have these again very carefully painted eyes. No cross-eyed animal this. And then the orange. There's a veritable smorgasbord of oranges. I see what looks like a bit of honey orange in the mandible, the face, and then the tangerine up here, fading into the orange of the head. Then the sides of the neck segues into this very dark and dirty orange, going into the black here, and then down the chest. And going down, dorsally, you can see the feathers or the filaments in the back, and also the wings. Look at that nice dark color fade into the edges. Then appearing here in the tail again. You know I love banded patterns in tails, and so of course I have to like this. And back up the side. And we reach those many Raptoran hands. This time, most of it's covered in feathers, And it's really quite pleasing to see an example of how an exciting feature might not always be seen in real life because it's covered with fur or feathers. And this cover of feathers really belie the true danger of these hands, where those meat hooks live. And here, let me show you another nice surprise for me, paint-wise. You'll see here a whitish infusion of colour. But also, if we move to the front, here, it's a kind of dirty white that lends an accent of colour, and not advertised loudly. And that's another aspect of living animals. There are often subtle features and colours that aren't always starkly painted in real life. Speaking of hooks, let's head down. Man, I can tell you how pleasing the sculpted detail looks in the feet. And again, the blunting of those claws. And then we come again to the business hook of the foot. These are once more beautifully sculpted, curved, pointed, and coloured. And to finish off, a once-over of the rest of the animal. Again, the vibrancy of the colour is really nice. I actually feel like I'm holding a bird in my hands. Now looking at the two again, you see the size difference due to the feathers. I also like that the snout colour here is exactly the same as the featherless one, as are the feet. So it's very easy to believe that they're the same animal, and if you shaved this rookie, you'd get this rookie, completely plucked or naked. So these two really do tie together very well. So just some size comparisons with models you may have to give you an idea of how big they are. Now figures like this give you a fresh look at dinosaurs, besides the scientifically accurate models like PNSO or dinosaur-inspired ones in Jurassic Park. There's more than enough of a Velociraptor to still keep things grounded, and these two lovelies will add a different flavour to a dinosaur collection, particularly if you're looking to encompass different aesthetics, moods, and styles. So that's it for Superreal's first offering. Rookie is a good name to start with, although it's obvious that in terms of skill and artistry, they're anything but. Both Adam and Susan have a background in architecture, interior design, children's books, video games, film, and VFX, as well as traditional art and sculpture. They've been making models for 15 years, and looking at Rookie today, it shows. It's always a pleasure to see what dinosaur artists all over the world are doing, and to get different perspectives, and thus broadening our own. Adam and Susan usually take a month or two for research, and given the glut of good material out there, I hope they'll look at other clades too. They ship worldwide, and I'll leave links to their contact information below. I'll see you in the next video.